money. He's an entrepreneur, educator, investor who believes in the world needs more entrepreneurs. And he's got a new book out, The Second Chance for Your Money, Your Life, and Your World. Just came out this month. It's already a bestseller at richdad.com, richdad.com. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. What do you think about them trying to label things that obviously aren't racist as racist to divert, or do you disagree with me, from all the real discrimination that's going on inside government and by the governing class and those that are allied with them? I see this as causing a major trend of lawlessness as people realize if we have a rogue government, we cannot follow their laws because they're illegitimate. I see this as what brings in anarchy. And, you know, anarchy is not the road I'm on, but, you know, if you'd like, you can come along. Well, if I don't want a road warrior society, but they claim they're here to bring order, it seems they're bringing disorder. Where do you see the world going, and how do you tie this into your larger worldview, Robert?
Well, first of all, I really do enjoy fried chicken and watermelon.
Exactly, I do too.
Doesn't make me a racist. But I think really what you're saying, I agree with, is that, you know, too many people keep the water stirred up. And when the water is stirred up and muddy and confusing, the people listening to the media or watching the reading the things in the paper is they cannot make logical decisions. And so people, like you say, they don't know what's going on because they're all stirred up all the time, making these really stupid remarks about, you know, this and that and racism and guns, and it's just goofy. And we're in a bad situation right now.
Well, the political elite have obviously fostered this because, as you said, the fog of war, it confuses us, it confounds us. But won't it end up making the country really have problems if they've got school kids obsessing and crying over brown paper bags, while meanwhile Obama is butchering the Bill of Rights and Constitution along with the Republicans?
That's what I think. You know, my rant, for those of you who have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my whole rant for the last 20 years has been, why don't we have financial education in our schools? You know, why are they talking about brown bags and fried chicken and watermelon? And when you look at, and I'm not Republican or Democrats, I don't have a dog in that fight.
Same here.
But when you have a president who comes from Hawaii like I do, and he went to one of the richest schools in Hawaii, but the guy knows nothing about money. And when you have a guy who knows nothing about money, but actually comes from a poor background, that poor background is going to affect their view on people who make money, people who are rich. And I think really that's the biggest problem, because from President of the United States down, senators and congressmen, military officers and all that, millions of people today who work for the government now expect the government to take care of them. You know, like Detroit went bankrupt because they couldn't pay for pensions. And why is that? Why is Obama going to make more money after he's president than when he did when he was working? Why are senators and congressmen paying exorbitant pensions when they only work for one term? At the same time, you have millions of poor people or people who are struggling, people who own businesses who may never be able to retire. And that's a crime. And that's why I say, why isn't there financial education in our schools?
That's right. They have demonized making money, saving money, how to build a business. They've just taught us, you know, go work for the big corporation in a drone facility, and they've created all this class warfare. Obama lands in a giant jet with 14 other support aircraft and over 200 Secret Service, and then tells Nigerians you shouldn't have air conditioning or a car. He doesn't say we should have cleaner cars or cleaner air conditioning and innovate new sciences, and that Africa, you know, could innovate and lead the world if they had that idea. No, he just says you're going to stay in mud huts. How's that sound? When he is there basically delivered by a high-tech flying carpet.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't remember, but I was a pilot. I flew for the Marine Corps in Vietnam. And I know how much it costs to run a plane. I remember when Clinton was running for office, he actually parked a 747 and left it running so somebody could give him a $200 haircut.
No, I remember that. And people were outraged back then.
Yeah.
Is there outrage fatigue now? Because stuff is getting more and more over the top. Or where do you, and I'm going to skip this network break because I want to give our guest more time. Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author of all time for self-help finance book, is our guest. Got a new book out. We're going to talk about that book. But, I mean, the world is just crazy at this point. give us your prognosis for the planet. There's obviously opportunities for those of us that are studying it. I mean, I'm going to do better probably than ever as things get worse, but I'm not happy about that because I know it's hurting the average person.
Amen. Alex, I would say exactly the same thing. It doesn't make me happy that I'm getting richer and richer, and I see my friends getting poorer and poorer. I'm very concerned right now about, my generation, the baby boom generation, the biggest generation in history. And they bought that program of put all your money in a 401k and invest for the long term. Now, I wrote a book called Rich Dad's Prophecy back in 2002. That was 14 years ago, or 13 years ago. And I said the biggest stock market crash in the history of the world was coming in 2016. Now, I was kind of guessing, but unfortunately, I didn't write it to be right. I wrote it out of concern. If I'm correct that in 2002, when I said the biggest market crash was coming in 2016, that means millions and millions of baby boomers, their kids, their grandkids, will feel the effect of that when their retirement savings are wiped out. I hope I'm wrong, but so far, my numbers look accurate and it's holding course right now. So I don't write because I want to be rich or poke fun or be righteous. I am really concerned about my fellow citizens.
It's frustrating because when you know how this stuff really works, you can position yourself and do well. And then just the average person, even if they seem smart or a friend, they just keep doing what CNBC and CNN say. Not even that those places have big audiences anymore, but still it's the authority. But with Brian Williams' fall, I think that's one of the big dominoes to go down with a loss of confidence in the system. What's your take on the future of the media?
Well, I think it's manipulated. You and I are in the same boat again. It's not free media, it's controlled media. If you have money, you control the media. If you don't have media, you don't have that money, you don't control it. When Rich Dad Poor Dad came out in 1997, and I started saying your house is not an asset, I was foretelling the crash coming in 2007.
Yeah, we should talk about your predictions. Rattle off some of those. They're amazing, and they're on record.
Well, there was three. One was that savers would be losers, and that was in 1997. And in 2007, when the markets crashed and the Fed began printing money, as you know, savers are losers. I also said your house is not an asset, and your house is the biggest asset for many of the middle class. And as you know, the real estate market has not yet recovered. Excuse me. And then I predicted in 2002 a massive crash would come prior to 2016.
You did.
And it came in 2007. And now this is the other side of the coin. I always talk about all coins have three sides: heads, tails, and the edge. You have Republicans on one side, Democrats on the other side, capitalists on one side, socialists on the other side. But our job as private citizens is to be on the edge looking at both sides.
That's right.
Fortunately, when the market crashed in 2007, the poor and middle class got wiped out, but the rich got richer. And one of the ways the rich got richer is the very banks that put out all this quantitative easing were offering guys like me literally hundreds of millions of dollars to buy the very real estate that was wiped out. And so what I write about and I talk about is that the rich are richer because they're on the other side of the coin. They don't go to school to get a job. They go to school to learn to be rich, how to start corporations.
And let's go above you at the level of actually building things in a good, corporate businessman, true capitalist. And above that is the real enemy, the crony capitalist. You're just piggybacking on them looking at both sides of the coin. Good businessmen, bad businessmen, you can do it. I can do it. Yeah. We've got to get the public to start actually getting outside the box, looking at the edge of the coin. The problem is they'll go above this. They'll finance Al-Qaeda. Doesn't mean they run them. They'll finance ISIS and then make hundreds of billions off fighting them. And the public goes, what, you say we command them? No, but we helped get them going. And then they'll use them by, again, gaming the dialectic to get more power. How do you get the public to think like an executive? I just, some people tell me either someone's got it or they don't, Robert.
Well, let me give you, I always write about three sides of a coin: heads, tails, and the edge. I was a Marine in Vietnam, and in 1972, I was standing out there. And you may recall in 71, Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Yes.
And I'm standing out there going, what the heck does this mean? So I wrote about that event in a book called Conspiracy of the Rich. Is when I was like 25 years old, You know, I'm talking to this Vietnamese fruit seller, and she wouldn't take a $50 bill. And so here I'm 25, 26 years old going, what's going on? And she didn't want the dollar, she wanted gold. And so that's when I went, oh my God. Plus, Vietnam was kind of a wake-up call for me because I realized we, the public, are lied to by those who control the military-industrial complex. Now, I'm not against war or pro-war. I don't like being lied to.
You're against the special interest being above the law.
Yeah, and so when the market started coming down, again, I say that the other side of the coin. I didn't want to be on the side that was losing. I want to be on the side that's winning. But as you know, the media controls the message. And so it keeps the poor and middle class interpolated, always upset, discussing things that really don't matter, like brown bag lunches with chicken in it.
Exactly, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Don't have a brown bag and don't bring chicken to fried. It's racist. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. And that's what we are. Or, you know, when I talked to, I had this person apply for the job the other day, and she was like really stopped from school. And she did nothing. I was going, she had no idea. She was applying for a job, but she had no idea what my company did. She just wanted a job and wanted to know how much it was going to pay her.
Yeah, if I wanted a job, I'd research everything about you. I'd come in saying, I want to help you. This is what I can offer. I'd like to advance in your company. I'd like to prove myself. I really like your philosophy, Mr. Kiyosaki. No, they just show up and go, yeah, you're lucky if you get me. You know, it's just amazing.
Worse than that, Alex, I was afraid when the interview was over, I was going to get sued.
Wow.
That's how, you know what I mean? Because it'd be either sexual harassment or discrimination. You know, as an employer, I'm terrified of what I even say to potential employees. That's how politically correct we are.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to tell a woman, oh, I think your blouse is nice. Oh, that's evil. That's horrible. Of course, that's a totally normal human activity, but it's evil.
And it wasn't nice, but I didn't say that.
But I mean, I don't want to say to even like an old lady, oh, I like your coat. You know, I'll say, oh, I like your dog on the hike and bike trail because everything's politically incorrect now.
That's correct. And I think, you know, what we're talking about without describing it is probably the problem. We're so stirred up all over the place, nobody's listening anymore. You know, everybody's talking, but nobody's listening. So I'm going, holy mackerel. You know, this is not a good time to be.
Well, Robert, I want to give you the floor. We got 5 minutes till break. I've been asking some of the questions up front, but front and center, what is most important to you, good, bad, and ugly right now? And we're going to come back from break in about 5 minutes and get into your new book.
I'm just concerned about this possible. I hope it doesn't happen, but if my Rich Dad was correct, again, published in 2002, Rich Dad's Prophecy predicted the biggest crash in the history of the world was coming in 2016. And that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's why I speak. That's why I write. That's why I take on the media. But I'm very concerned for my citizens. Look, Alex, what happens if this? Let's say I'm right. Hopefully I'm not. And millions of baby boomers lose their pension, their homes, their jobs. They lose everything. What is a ripple effect throughout the world going to mean to that? What is it? We've never been here before. Never before has the U.S. dollar, one currency, been the reserve currency of the world, and we're printing it.
Wow.
The Europeans are printing, Japanese are printing, and you got to look at this and go, this is not good. So that's my concern right now.
Well, look, your prediction will come true, whether it's this year, next year, or 2 years down the road, or 3 years. Zimbabwe, Weimar, I mean, let's talk about that history. I mean, doesn't this always end in a serious collapse? I mean, it doesn't go anywhere else. My only concern is how big will it get before it implodes? I want to have a controlled crash landing.
Yes. The point here is the last 100 years has been 52 so-called currencies that collapsed, 52 in the last 100 years. But never, the reason 1972, me standing on the fields of Vietnam, was so important was that for the very first time in history, the U.S. dollar is the currency of the world. And if the dollar goes bad or something skews up, the whole world goes down. It's not like just Zimbabwe or the Weimar Republic. It's the whole world. It is the biggest collapse possible. God. And we have no financial education. We don't tell people this.
The biggest collapse possible, a global Weimar, what will that look like?
Alex, you know Harry Dent?
Yeah.
Yeah. After I talked to him yesterday, I was put on suicide watch. You know, I can't even fathom what it might be. I can't imagine it. Because I was in Zimbabwe in 2004 just to go see what a currency collapse looks like.
I knew that. I read an article that quoted you. Tell us about that.
Well, it was just extremely frightening. You know, what happens when your money is no good is the question. What happens when you can't trade? What happens if you can't buy food? You know, and people do goofy things. And in fact, you know, I was accosted by what they call the war vets, you know, these guys with AK-47s. And I was out there going, you know, I'm not here to change your political views. I just want to find out what's going on. But they didn't care. They were afraid I was part of the CIA or something, which I'm not. But I'm going, hey, I'm just here to find out. But it was so tense. You know, there was a little woman, she was about probably 80 years old. The war vets went to her farm in Zimbabwe and kicked her off. And I saw this little lady, she comes up to me and she says, you know, she's just screaming at me in Afrikaans, which I don't speak. But it was just a futility. After 400 years, she and her husband lose the farm their parents gave to them. And I don't know if that's going to happen here, but it's frightening. The thing I did find out in Zimbabwe was what kind of triggered the collapse of the Zimbabwe dollar was a thing called retirement pensions.
That's right.
And the U.S. is sitting at the same precarious position right now.
Wasn't it government pensions?
Any kind of pension.
Yeah.
With millions of people counting on the government pension to keep them alive when they retire. That's what I'm afraid of. That's why after talking to Harry Dent, I was depressed.
When we come back, we're going to get into your new book and other world events taking place. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is our guest. You go to his website. Ladies and gentlemen, it's got a lot of powerful information, richdad.com. And we got to get this guy back more often than every 4 years. I want to get him on every few months. And we'll also open the phones up. So stay with us. We'll be right back on the other side, 800-259-9231. It's teleprompter-free radio, TV. Robert Kiyosaki is our guest, richdad.com. His new book, Second Chance for Your Money, Your Life, and Your World, and Our World. I am going to be listening very carefully to what he has to say. I remember back when his first big book, he had other books came out in the late 90s. My dad was like, you got to read this, you got to read this, you got to read this. And my dad's been pretty successful in business, smart guy. And so I read it. And it just like, yeah, that makes sense, that makes sense. I had kind of instinctively already agreed with so much of it, but I did learn a lot. But I tell you, I can't wait to read his new book. I've read 5 or 6 of his books, and they're excellent. I've tuned in when I get a chance online to his radio show. So you can find that on his website as well, richdad.com. And the reason I have other talk show hosts on my show is I don't care. I hope Robert has 1 billion listeners. I'm not some egomaniac. I know he's not as well. George Norrie has me on. You know, he's got 16 million terrestrial listeners. I only have about 5-6 million terrestrial listeners. Altogether, about 20 million online and YouTube and the rest of it. But he has me on because he wants to try to save the country and have a free system. I mean, we're all kind of in the same mindset here. We're fellow travelers, not in the socialist way, but in the opposite way, a true capitalist way. So we got to stick together. So if you want to defeat the globalists, get his book, read it, give it to others. If you want to defeat the crony monopoly capitalists that are discrediting capitalism, get his book. Listen, socialism, once it comes in, is so horrible, it always ends up getting reversed. So we've got a very good shot at beating this. The question is, can we beat it before we get really deep into it? And we're starting to get deep into it. So I hope you get his book. I hope you go to InfoWarsLife.com to get our great nutraceuticals, Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine X2. It's not like any other iodine out there. Consult your physician. It's true iodine. I don't call it nascent so much because the other nascent brands out there, we've had them looked at. They're not really nascent. This is pure iodine, 99999, you know, just boom. I mean, it's not bound. It's not an alcohol. It's an organic palm oil. It's injected as a gas in a patented secret process that the Russians invented. It's life-changing. It's the good halogen. Goes in, just pulls the garbage out, supercharges the energy. You use super male or super female vitality that we have discounted the month of February with it, 20% off. It's just, I don't know, what is it, like 18, 19 different concentrated herbs. The women's has a couple extra. That's why I get confused on the numbers. That are just known to give you more vitality, energy in the gym, your libido. I mean, believe me, just try it. You'll be a repeat customer. And regardless, you're supporting the First Amendment and freedom and liberty and folks that promote the Second Amendment and sovereignty and family rights and property rights. So if the political class ever can be defeated. The insider political class, the crony class, it's when we, the people, start voting with our dollars consciously. And it's starting to happen with organic food, you name it. And that's why it is an absolute essential that you buy the T-shirts, you buy the books, you buy the films, and pass them on to others to wake them up, but also fund our operation. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. At the end of the day, money for me is about putting fuel in my truck so I can drive to the Grand Canyon and show my kids. It's not about I got money, look, I'm waving around some $100 bills. It's about I have freedom. And I try to use the money we've made to build a platform to promote your freedom. Because we're in this together. We all hang together or hang separate, as Benjamin Franklin said. This is a critical time of change. And the enemy's trying to take over in this point. We can seize this opportunity and really change things for the better. There are times in history when more happens in a decade than happened in the previous 100 years. We're setting our future destinies right now. Every major economist, philosopher, historian agrees. We're in a critical point right now, the beginning of it. The next 5 to 10 years. I want to see if Robert agrees with me. And then we're going to go to some phone calls, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. But it's so important now to tell friends and family about radio shows you like and pass it on. It's so important to promote other podcasts. It's so important to support our local affiliates and their sponsors. It's so important to buy the products because if we build it and you come, this will become the new pastime. If you want to expose an evil culture, become the new culture. Make art. Compete. Our ideas are like snow cones in hell, and they're selling flamethrowers in hell. People want to buy what we got, and we're selling freedom for free, but we need the platform to put it out. So go to InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. Check out the over 800 products on the site now. Most of it we can get shortwave radios, T-shirts, you name it, made in America. Some of it's not at a lower price. We let you make the decision. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. Again, second chance for your money, for your life, and for our world is the new book. And he is joining us right now. It's 8 lessons in military leadership for entrepreneurs. I want you to talk about your book and any other issues you want to get to, and then I want to take a few phone calls, Robert.
Yeah, first of all, 8 Lessons of Military Leadership is a book coming out in a couple of months.
Well, I can't wait to read that one, too.
Yeah. And Second Chance is about where we are today, and people may need to change some of the things they're doing. If I could mention Second Chance, if I show it up to you, I love what you do because you give people like me, people with a different point of view, a chance to speak, versus what happens on television a lot of times. They'll put one person with one point of view and a person with another point of view, and they yell at each other. And we learn nothing.
The plan is to teach us how to fight with each other and never actually come together.
Yeah. So I appreciate what you do, and I agree with you. You know, cash has only one thing, to put fuel in your tank and to keep your business going, keep your programs going, and support, you know, people and messages you like. So I agree wholeheartedly with you. The reason I wrote Second Chance is because of all the confusion. So if I could be bold and show you a picture from the book here, what you'll see here are pictures. And although it's a very big book, the reason I made it in pictures is so that you didn't have to listen to the people yelling back and forth. Also, what happens for many people is when they read economic terms, they get confused. So Second Chance, part 1 especially, is everything's in pictures. So a 10-year-old kid could read it, an adult could read it, and the best thing about it is parent and adult, or old guys and young guys, could discuss the pictures rather than get confused about all the economic jargon that's thrown out there, like what is the GDP versus NDA and all this stuff. It's just pictures. So when you have a Second Chance about pictures, you can explain to your family, your kids, by pointing, because you know your kids will probably not read it, but they can see the pictures. And I think that's what makes the book differently. I'm not pushing an agenda. When you see, like I said, in 1971, 1972, when I was in Vietnam, you know, I went, oh my God, I better wake up. You know, something's happening here. And that's when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And if you know what happened, we started printing, and the biggest boom in history ever took off. We have never been this high, 17,000 Dow. Then in 1978, this is all in pictures in Second Chance. In 1978, the 401k came out. And basically what that was, the 401k was, the big corporations were saying to the little employees, hey, you're on your own, dude. You know, if you run out of money when you retire, it's no longer our problem. So when you see the 401k from that perspective, like at the other side of the coin, and you look at the pictures, then you can start making different decisions for you, your family, and your life.
What do you make by the big banking cartels worldwide, and now they're floating it here at the State of the Union, the government, quote, taking over private 401ks and education 401ks to, quote, protect them, but throwing in class envy that these are, you know, lazy trust fund kids when the average thing's like $25,000. I mean, that's really scary when they start sniffing around the pension funds, the private pension funds. I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
And healthcare.
Yeah.
The whole thing. You talked about socialism versus capitalism. You know, I was a Marine. I fought for capitalism. I didn't fight for socialism. You know, when people say, what happened to the American dream? The American dream has gone to the entitlement mentality. And I look at all our senators and congressmen and presidents. They all expect the government to take care of them. And what's going to happen, if I'm correct, in 2016, and the whole stock market house of cards comes down, that means everybody who's counting on the government or the IRA or the 401k, they may be up the creek without a paddle. So that's why I started the Rich Dad Company back in 1997.
What do you recommend? I can't wait because I haven't bought your book yet. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it because I need to get my act together. I mean, I'm always learning more. I can't wait, though, till the other book comes out, 8 Lessons in Military Leadership for Entrepreneurs. Give us a sneak peek on that.
Well, it's about, you know, we have a high number of veterans who are unemployed. I mean, they're homeless, a lot of them. What I'm saying is that the military gave them some of the best training to become entrepreneurs, not employees. And they, you know, they gave them such things as, you know, unity, courage,
initiative,
skills. And so most of our veterans are actually natural entrepreneurs, except when they come back from the war, they're trying to fit into the corporate world, and a lot of them just don't fit. So 8 Lessons for military leadership is about how every military person, from the lowest private to the general, are already good entrepreneurs because they have great training.
Flesh that out a bit, then I want to take some calls because it is fascinating. I found vets do real good in my operation because I just say, here's the mission, have integrity, you know, report news, have an open bias of telling the truth, and from a perspective of freedom, get out there. We want people to really dominate and break big stories. And I found people like Joe Biggs, they just get out there, they get it, they have a mission, I turn them loose.
Yeah. Like when I was, you know, I was a Marine pilot, I flew the helicopter gunship. And if my major came down to me and says, hey, Lieutenant, take out that machine gun nest, he didn't say, well, I don't feel like it. I mean, he just, you did it or died. I mean, that is how Marines and most military people are trained.
What type of gunship? Was it a Cobra or what was it?
Both. I flew the Huey gunship and the Cobra gunship.
Wow, I'd like to have you on about that. That's interesting.
I really loved it. But anyway, that's why military personnel are trained to be entrepreneurs. They're going to get the job done. And that's why the Marines had so many problems in Fallujah. Not to berate my brother in the Army, but the Marines took Fallujah, and then the Army went back in. They lost it, and Marines went back in. But a lot of my friends were brought up on court-martialed because they did the job. They killed people. And I hate to say that, but that's what Marines are trained to do.
Yeah, what about political correctness in the military? I mean, you know, I'm against those wars, but once they're there, you know, they're going to court-martial people because you're getting shot at from a house, they shoot the house up, and then they shoot a civilian. I mean, you can't blame the individual, in my view. I'm sorry.
It's disgusting. My friend is a 3-star general, and he has to be politically correct. You know, he was my roommate in Vietnam, and he says, I cannot say what I want to say because it looks bad upon the Marine Corps. And when your generals are not allowed to speak, we have a serious political correctness problem. And it's sad. Look, ISIS is actually doing us a big favor right now. They're really upsetting the whole world. You know, if they actually put on video of them beheading a little kid, the world would come and blow them out of the water. But right now, they're only beheading men. But when they start beheading women and kids, I think then the Marine Corps will step up.
Well, they're doing it. They're just smart enough not to put it on video. And I tell you, what a
Yep.
despicable group of dirtbags.
Oh,
I mean, those people are just unbelievable.
yep.
You look at the eyes of those people. They just look like a bunch of Charles Mansons. I don't know how you can find such large groups of people that have a Charlie Manson look in their eye all the time. I mean, all the people I know that look like that are on PCP. Robert, what do you think's going on with these people?
Alex, I have no idea. Look, you know, I had a good friend who is Muslim, and I never met a man who hated so much. He's a good friend, but he hated Jews. And I kept asking him, I said, Saleh, how in the world can you hate somebody that much? You know, because I hate, but I don't hate that much. And that's the question, is how could you go and do basically atrocities to your fellow human being and think you're doing it in the name of God? It is beyond my comprehension. So that's why I think we need to be stronger, but we also take different approaches that neutralize this ISIS threat.
Well, of course, and you know, the West helped set up ISIS to take out Syria. Now it's come back. It is a mess. You ready to take some phone calls, Robert?
Sure.
Let's do it. Mike in Virginia, you're on the air with our guest, the author of the new book, Second Chance. Go ahead.
Yeah. First off, I can't believe I got on. But anyway, yeah, I have a question. I have some silver, I have some gold. I got a lot of silver, let's put it that way, and some gold. My house has been paid for years ago, 20 years ago. What else could I do to help protect? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. You know, congratulations for having silver. I like silver personally. I love gold. I have a lot of gold and silver. And the difference is between your philosophy and my philosophy is I like debt. You see, the reason I teach people how to use debt is because debt is the new money. See, what happened after 1971 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard? The dollar became debt. And so when the financial pundits are telling the poor middle class to get out of debt, what the rich are doing is using debt. Ask your banker this question. Does a banker want your savings, or does he want you to borrow millions of dollars from him?
And this is simple, but it's also complex. There's different philosophies. I would either go with the pay for your house, but get one at a good bargain, stay in it forever, and then run entrepreneurial businesses and do things like that and come up with new products. Or you can go with the whole debt model in businesses, but you got to be smart, pretty darn smart, to go with your model. I think that's the only problem with your model, Robert, is that if you know what you're doing, it's the best model. It's what the insiders use. But the general public is going to get basically screwed over because they're not going to actually follow what you say. Try to explain it to people.
Well, amen. You said, if you don't have any financial education, don't do what I do. And the reason I wrote Second Chance, I got it in 3 parts: the past, the present, and the future. And again, there's pictures throughout the same whole thing so that your kids can understand it. But what you do is up to you. I learned my financial education began with my rich dad, who was my best friend's father, at age 9, teaching me to play Monopoly. And for about 30 years, we played Monopoly, adults. And today, as an adult, I play Monopoly as an adult. For the formula is 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So in 2007, when the markets crashed, unfortunately, millions were losing everything. Guys like me were going to the very banks that set up the crash and saying, would you give me a couple of $1 million to go do this? You see, what I'm saying in Second Chance is that all coins have 3 sides: heads, tails, and in the middle, which is intelligence. To stand on the edge is intelligent. And what you're saying, I agree exactly with you, is be intelligent. Hear what I'm saying, hear what you're saying, but ultimately it's up to you, the guy on the edge, that has to make up their own mind. I made up my mind a long time ago.
That's right. I mean, the real fortune is in the arena. Fortune favors the bold, to quote British SAS. But if you're going to get in the arena, you better be ready. Alex Jones here, back live. We've got 6 minutes in this segment, 5 minutes after that, and then our guest has got to leave us. We're going to look at endocrine disruptors on record and household items and a big way to boost your health with Dr. Edward Grip coming up, and other news in the next hour. A lot of key news breaking at Infowars.com that I have not gotten to. Stuff like elderly man facing 10 years over unloaded flintlock pistol. Just amazing story. Walking while Jew, what they're not telling you. And if people attacking Jews in Europe get political support, or now this sit-in Black Lives Matter, where black folks go in and kind of rough up and get in white people's faces, This is just racism being promoted, and it's more divide and conquer. We should all just come together for freedom. I know it's a liberal cause celeb to hate Jews, but it's going nowhere. And the globalists are promoting it. And I assure you, if every Jew on the face of the earth was teleported to the moon, we would still have major problems. So it's a scapegoat, it's an excuse, and it's sick. That's all I have to say on the subject. We're going back to our guest, richdad.com, Robert Kiyosaki. Let's go ahead and go to Chris in Washington, then Vincent, Bubba, John, Eric, and others. Chris, your question for Robert.
Yeah, my question is, I lost a job of 12 years, turned the 401k into an IRA Roth at a credit union, and I'm wondering if that's really a safer place to put it. I also have recently put it into my wife's name, so she's a Japanese national. I could wire it to Japan. But I'm wondering if those accounts would be frozen, would even keep me from wiring funds internationally. And is the 401k Roth, because it's a credit union, make it more safe?
Again, I'm going to say all coins have three sides, heads, tails, and the edge. I don't have an IRA, I don't have a 401k, and I don't have a Roth, simply because my rich dad taught me how to manage my money without the control of the government. See, the 401k and the Roth IRA are government, vehicles, basically. And they're doing their best to get the poor and middle class to do something for their retirement. Now, that's good for most people. I wouldn't do it. I'm concerned about them because the market's at all-time tops. So like I've always said, what you do is up to you. What I do is what I can do. For example, if Mark Zuckerberg called me right now and says, hey, why don't you start Facebook? I can't even use my cell phone, much less, create a.
So you got to financially be involved in what you know.
Yeah. And what your experiences are and all this, like, a farmer would do something different. A secretary would do something different. A doctor would do something different. But and I'm not against it, what the big banks have trained us to do is go to school, but they give us no financial education. Save money, which means give their money to the bank, pay your taxes, get out of debt, and invest for the long term in the stock market. I don't do that. And that's what Second Chance is about.
Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket, Chris. But I mean, obviously, what do you think of his idea of getting money out of the country?
Yeah, you better talk to an attorney because I'll just tell you this much: they're cracking down very, very hard.
That's right. I talked to a lot of famous people that left the country years ago, and
they're cracking down so hard right now. If you do anything even smells illegal, you're in trouble.
Robert Kiyosaki has also co-authored 2 books with Donald Trump, and a third Trump book for 2016 is being developed. We're going to get him on routinely when these books come out. We want to jam in a few more questions or comments here with the callers. And listen, I can have a Harry Dent on who disagrees with gold and silver and then have a Kiyosaki on that agrees with it. I can have a Jim Rogers on. We're giving you different perspectives, but from basically an honest perspective about how stuff's rigged at the top. And then the only way to survive is to know how things are rigged and basically play off of that while you expose it. I think that's what we're getting at here today. But Vincent, specifically, finishing up your question, you were going to do real estate, but you saw what was happening in it. Go ahead, your question.
I guess the thing that became problematic to me is how does a person succeed in a business or in real estate if so many people are living off of subsidies and things like that, and jobs are just kind of vanishing. I've noticed a lot of businesses here where I live have just closed down.
Well, that's one thing about real estate is you got to be in the right area to be investing in it. A good question, Vincent. Robert, when is the right time to invest in real estate?
Well, the first thing is I've been in real estate probably 45 years, and I started back in 1973, I believe. I took a little infomercial class, $385, and I learned how to buy real estate for nothing down. But as the instructor said to my little class, I was still a Marine, he says, your education begins when you leave the class. You have to go out and practice. So I went out. The instruction was each person in the class had to go look at 100 properties, not buy anything, but write an evaluation of it, and then buy something. Unfortunately, what our schools teach you is don't make mistakes. And so most people don't want to go through that process of looking at 100 properties, making a lot of mistakes, being stupid all the time. And then finally the lights go on in your head. If you're going to do real estate, stocks, bonds, currencies, goldfish, whatever you want to do. You have to go through that process of
Absolutely.
making
You gotta lose to know how to win, to quote Aerosmith.
Well, you've got to make mistakes to learn. And that's why my poor dad, like I said, a PhD, head of education in the state of Hawaii, graduated from college in less than 2 years. The reason he was not successful is because he never made any mistakes. So when he got fired from his job as head of education for the state of Hawaii, after running for candidate for lieutenant governor as a Republican in the Communist Republic of Hawaii, he couldn't work. He didn't know what to do. Here is guy a PhD. He's unemployed at age 50.
And that's the monopoly cult system versus the free market, and the cult system's taking over, folks. John in Texas, you're on the air. Go ahead.
You know, Alex, I was in high school back in when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And the first thing I noticed that through the 1950s, everything I paid 5 cents or 10 cents for, comic books, soda pop, candy bars, everything started climbing.
That's right.
And it hasn't stopped since. And what I want to ask your guest is, he really thinks 2016 is when the brakes are going to burn out on the inflation engine and everything's going to go to hell?
My answer is the job of a prophet is to be wrong. I mean, Alex and I are the same guy. We're just different nationalities. We're trying to tell people, wake up. Don't be a victim of it.
Yeah, we're giving you our best guess. It doesn't mean we know everything.
Yeah, we're doing our best, you know, like we're kind of like Howard Stern. We're shock jocks trying to say, hey, wake up, take a look around, see what's going on. Don't just do as you're told like they do in school. So I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen in 2016. But if it does, like a Boy Scout, are you prepared for it? I'll just say this last thing here is this. When that market comes down, the rich are going to get richer. What are you going to do?
That's right, because they're going to be prepositioned, and there's things little guys can do. Then you'll get bigger, and we need the patriots, the liberty lovers, the conservatives, the classical liberals to know this stuff, so it's not just a bunch of cronies like Nancy Pelosi making money. Robert Kiyosaki, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back in a few months when the new book comes out as well, 8 Lessons in Military Leadership for Entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Amazing interview. I think that was a really good interview. We're going to come back and get into something you can do about excitotoxins and things in household products.